Its name was Daniel Abodunrin, a Nigerian pastor with a faith as vast and unshakable as the sky. He was a man well known and respected by his community. One day in 1991, cloaked in a robe of striking red, Pastor Daniel Abodunrin walked towards the zoological garden at the University of Ibadan. His steps led him directly to the enclosure where the lions were kept. As usual, a crowd had gathered to watch the animals, but Pastor Daniel was there with a different purpose. He intended to prove, before the eyes of all, the truth of the biblical story of Daniel in the lion's den. With absolute conviction, he was certain that God would send a guardian angel to shut the mouths of the lions, just as he had done centuries ago. With the Bible in his hand and a prayer on his lips, he stepped into the lion's den. But let's pause this breathtaking story for a moment. What was the miracle that Pastor Daniel sought to recreate? Let's travel back in time. Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king of Babylon, reigned from 605 to 562 BC. This was the same king who, for his Median wives, built the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. His era was also the era of the prophet Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar attacked Jerusalem 3 times, a third and final assault so devastating that it left the city walls in ruins and Solomon's temple in ashes. He put countless people to the sword and took many more as captives to Babylon. Among them was the prophet Daniel, a boy of just 12. Nebuchadnezzar commanded his court to select a few of the most promising young captives to be trained for service in the royal palace. Daniel was one of those chosen. Daniel was a man of profound faith. He never forgot to pray and worship his God. As years passed, his ability to interpret the king's dreams earned him a special place in the Babylonian court, transforming him into one of its most distinguished figures. His status remained until Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon and brought Daniel with him to Persia. In Cyrus's court, Daniel held a position of great honor, second only to the king himself. His influence continued into the reign of Darius I, who also placed immense trust in Daniel for his exceptional wisdom in governance and his expertise in courtly affairs. This, however, ignited the fires of jealousy among the other courtiers. They plotted to discredit him in the eyes of King Darius. They knew Daniel prayed 3 times a day, facing Jerusalem without fail. So, they devised a wicked plan. They proposed to King Darius that for 30 days, all officials and subjects should cease praying to their own gods and direct all their petitions and requests only to the king. Anyone who disobeyed this decree would be thrown into the lion's den as punishment. Though intrigued by this strange proposal, King Darius agreed. The 30-day ban on worship began. The prophet Daniel, fully aware of the sinister plot, continued his daily prayers without a hint of fear. A few days later, the conspirators exposed Daniel to the king as he was praying. They demanded his punishment. King Darius, who loved Daniel dearly, was bound by his own decree. With a heavy heart, he ordered Daniel to be cast into the lion's den. "May the God you serve so faithfully rescue you," Darius said to him. The order was carried out, and Daniel was thrown into a den of hungry lions. The next morning, A worried and anxious Darius rushed to the den and called out to Daniel. He was still alive. Overjoyed, the king ordered him to be brought out. The prophet Daniel explained that God had sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. King Darius then commanded that all of Daniel's accusers be arrested and thrown into the very same den. He also decreed that all people throughout his empire should revere the God of Daniel. And so, we learn how the hungry lions did not harm the prophet Daniel. The reason was his profound and unyielding faith in God. Now, let us return to the story of Pastor Daniel Abodunrin. As we said, this Nigerian pastor sought to replicate and prove the truth of the prophet Daniel's story from the Holy Scriptures. In 1991, he went to the zoological garden at the University of Ibadan and walked directly to the lion's enclosure. With a Bible in his hand, he entered the den, praying. The crowd watched in stunned disbelief. Pastor Daniel recited verses from the Bible, beseeching God to do for him what he had done for the prophet Daniel. According to eyewitnesses, the lions initially retreated as Pastor Daniel approached, still reciting from the Bible. But then, suddenly, they lunged. They attacked him, mauled him, and took his life. It is said that the prophet Daniel was born in Jerusalem and was one of the prophets of the children of Israel, gifted with the ability to interpret dreams and see prophetic visions. It is worth noting that in the Old Testament, the 27th book is dedicated to the book of Daniel, which consists of 12 chapters. The first part deals with the events of his life and the dreams he interpreted, while the latter part, written by Daniel himself, is dedicated to the visions he saw. The prophet Daniel lived to be about 85 years old, but his exact burial place is not definitively known. Here, we have encountered two stories whose main heroes were both named Daniel. But what a world of difference in their fates. Let's get acquainted with another story. Though the name is different, this event is also said to be true. A famous story where a person of unwavering faith places themselves in a dangerous situation and a miracle occurs is the tale of Saint Francis of Assisi and the Wolf of Gubbio. This story, though not as globally renowned as Daniel in the lion's den, is one of the most celebrated miracles attributed to Saint Francis, the Catholic patron saint of animals and the environment. The story goes like this. In the 13th century, near the town of Gubbio in Italy, a large and ferocious wolf appeared. It not only killed livestock, but also attacked humans, causing immense terror among the townspeople. People were so afraid that no one dared to venture out of the city alone, and they always went armed as if preparing for battle. However, all attempts to kill the wolf were futile, and fear continued to grip the town. Saint Francis of Assisi, famous for his deep faith and special connection with nature and animals, heard of this. Despite the warnings and pleas of the people, he decided to confront the wolf alone and unarmed. He believed that if he went with complete faith and in the name of God, God would protect him, and he could communicate with the wild beast. Saint Francis, accompanied by a few of his companions and some townspeople who followed from a distance, headed towards the forest where the wolf lived. When the wolf saw Francis, it charged at him with its mouth open, full of fury. Just as the wolf was about to attack, St. Francis made the sign of the cross and, in a calm but firm voice, commanded the wolf in the name of Christ. "Come here, brother wolf. In the name of Christ, I command you not to harm me or anyone else." As soon as Francis spoke these words, a miracle occurred. The ferocious wolf suddenly closed its mouth, slowed down, and lay down at St. Francis's feet as gently as a lamb. St. Francis then spoke to the wolf, reprimanding it for its deeds, but also understanding the reasons for its behavior. He said, "Brother wolf, you have caused great harm in this land and committed terrible crimes. All the people hate and curse you. But I wish to make peace between you and them." He promised the wolf that if it stopped attacking people and their animals, the townspeople would feed it for the rest of its life, and it would never be hungry again. To show its agreement, Francis extended his hand to the wolf, and the wolf lifted its paw and gently placed it in Francis's hand, thus sealing the pact of peace. Then, Francis returned to the town with the wolf, walking peacefully by his side. The people were astonished to see this, and the news quickly spread throughout the town. Francis gave a sermon in the town square, explaining the pact he had made with Brother Wolf. The people of Gubbio kept their promise and fed the wolf every day until it died of natural causes 2 years later. The wolf also remained true to its pact and never attacked anyone again. So, you have heard the stories. What are your thoughts on this?